Hey folks, Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com. As Polycom heads into the gaming market, they wanted a device that would serve both streamers as well as folks that are working from home. Thus we have their newest product, the Poly Studio P5. It's a webcam with integrated audio, as you can hear and see, and that's exactly why we're doing this video. I figured a direct comparison against something like my Razer Siren Elite would tell us just how good the audio sounds, and let's see what kind of quality we can get out of the video. So without further ado, let's make some setting changes and see what's what. The first and most obvious thing is video quality. Now, I figured I needed to adjust this because pretty much every webcam I've ever used is either too saturated or over bright, or the colors are just plain wrong. But this is how it looks straight out of the box. The only light source I have is an overhead light from the fan, and I've made no adjustments there either. So this is exactly what you're going to get when you put this webcam in front of your face. Now the audio, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different story. As I'm using OBS, I can make adjustments directly to these inputs down here in the sources section, but what if you're not using OBS? Well, thankfully, NVIDIA has invested in something that they're calling broadcast, which is the same sort of utility, and it can be applied globally to any device that you plug in. So the adjustments that we're making here, just know that you can make them elsewhere, and you don't have to make these adjustments directly in things like Zoom or WebEx or anything like that. In the background, I went ahead and changed the device over to the Poly Studio P5. So now you can hear the issues with the audio. It's very noisy, there's a lot of excess hissing, and we also have a very tinny voice. Now I don't have exactly a deep voice as it is, but just the same, it shouldn't be this tinny. So first things first, we're gonna come down here, we're gonna right click on where it says Poly Studio P5 and go to filters. There are no filters currently applied, so we're gonna hit the plus, and we're going to add noise suppression. So there are only two options here. It speaks, which is low CPU usage and low quality, or RN noise, which is good quality and more CPU usage. Well, obviously we're gonna pick the better one, and you should be able to immediately notice a difference in my voice. Now that's not applying any other filters. That's just how it's gonna sound straight out of the gate. There are a number of different adjustments that you can make, including adjusting the gain. So if you need it to be louder, now I'm louder, or if you need it to be softer, you can do that too. So we're going to leave this right there, and now you should have at least a decent side-by-side between what the Razer Siren Elite is able to do and this particular webcam. Now I wouldn't expect any sort of parity between them, but as you can hear, it's pretty decent. It's definitely going to work for any sort of streaming setup that you have, and it will absolutely work for any of the conference calls that you end up having to take day after day. The Studio P5 does ship with a piece of software called Polylens. As you can see on the screen here, it allows you to adjust your firmware, and it lets you know whether the device is connected or not. Under the Controls tab, if I wasn't actively using the camera, you'd be able to see a number of controls that allow you to adjust things like color temperature, or zoom, or crop, or brightness, any number of things that you'd be able to adjust to make this look exactly the way you want. The Settings tab, really the only thing you can do here is reset the device, but you can open a ticket directly from this software to ask a question of the developers and get additional information. Now, this studio software, this Polylens software is not the only choice in town. If you want to, you can use the free NVIDIA broadcast software, and that broadcast software allows you to make a lot of the same adjustments that we made in OBS, but you can make it on a piece of software that will allow you to pass those changes directly to something like Zoom or Cisco's WebEx, so you don't necessarily have to just use something like OBS and then pass the results to another device or another software. You can use this broadcast as the man in the middle, make those same adjustments, and tune this camera to look precisely the way that you want. So you know that you have options, and you're not just tied down to just this piece of software. This device does offer that as an option. Behind the device, there's also another interesting little thing. There's a little tiny latch that you can open up, and inside is a USB-A port. Now that port can be used pretty much any way that you want. It can be used as pass-through, so if you had a wired mouse and you wanted to plug it into the back of the device, you could do that, or a keyboard, or really kind of the sky's the limit. Or you could use a wireless dongle on the back there, and that would allow you to, again, control something like a mouse, but you'd use it without having to tie up yet another port. I did run into one issue with the software with the P5, and that related to, of all things, OBS. For whatever reason, Windows 10 would not release the camera so I could actually make use of it. It would always just pop up an error message saying that it was in use. through a lot of Googling and a lot of surfing of the forums, I finally figured out that it has to do with the virtual device, that is to say the virtual camera that OBS uses. You can remove that, and as you can see, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever, but I don't use those virtual cameras for anything. Maybe you do. This might be a concern for you. Hopefully Polycom will patch this problem and we'll just see another firmware update or another software update that completely erases that issue. But if you use OBS, it might be something to keep in mind. The last question is about price. The Studio P5 is priced at $79.99, which is about $30 cheaper than its nearest competitor, and it's offering all of the same features as those other devices. In fact, it even has one particular feature that I like more than those other devices, but I can't really show it to you. On the front of the device, there's a small ring, and when you turn that ring, not unlike the tunnels in Aliens, it has an iris that closes shut over the lens. So that, combined with the light on top, lets me know that I'm not transmitting video or audio to the outside world. So I guess the last remaining question is, do I like this device? Yeah, I do. The video quality is excellent, and the audio, it's okay. It's a little bit quiet, but that can be fixed with filters and a little bit of gain. Honestly, the only thing that gives me concern is that OBS integration. Having to remove that virtual camera is concerning, and I don't know if that's going to come back and bite me later. Maybe that's something that Polycom can address in the near term. I guess we'll have to see. Either way, drop by GamingTrend.com for our full review. I've been Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com, saying thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.